Wife cheats on disabled military husband with a black man. What happens next will shock you. Lucas stepped off the bus, his duffel bag slung over his shoulder and his cane tapping against the pavement. The familiar streets of his hometown stretched before him, a sight he had longed for during his deployment. His heart raced with anticipation as he approached the house he once shared with Mia. As he reached the front door, it swung open. Mia stood there, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Welcome home," she said, her voice tight with an emotion Lucas couldn't quite place. "It's good to be back," Lucas replied, stepping inside. The house smelled different, he noticed. Cleaner, somehow. Less lived in. Later that evening, they sat at the dining table, an awkward silence hanging between them. Lucas attempted to break the ice, recounting stories from his time overseas, carefully omitting the more gruesome details. Mia nodded along, her responses short and noncommittal. "So, how have things been here?" Lucas asked, desperate to bridge the growing gap between them. Mia shrugged, pushing her food around her plate. "Oh, you know. Same old, same old. Work keeps me busy." Lucas frowned, sensing her evasiveness. He was about to press further when Mia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, a flash of panic crossing her face before she quickly composed herself. "Everything okay?" Lucas asked. "Just work," Mia replied, too quickly. She excused herself, disappearing into the kitchen. Lucas sat alone at the table, straining to hear Mia's hushed conversation. He caught snippets. "Andre, not now. He just got back." That sent a chill down his spine. He wanted to believe it was nothing, that Mia just needed time to adjust to his return. But a nagging doubt had taken root in his mind, one he couldn't easily shake off. As Mia returned, her face flushed, Lucas forced a smile. "Everything all right at work?" "Yes, just a small crisis," Mia replied, not quite meeting his eyes. "You know how it is." Lucas nodded, deciding to let it go for now. He was home. After all, they had time to reconnect, to rebuild what had been strained by distance and trauma. But as he watched Mia fidget with her phone, her eyes darting to it every few seconds, he couldn't shake the feeling that coming home might not be the happy ending he had imagined. Days passed, and the tension in the house grew thicker. Lucas tried to ignore the gnawing suspicion in his gut, focusing instead on readjusting to civilian life. But the distance between him and Mia seemed to widen with each passing hour. One morning, as Mia showered, her phone buzzed incessantly on the nightstand. Lucas, his patience worn thin by sleepless nights and unanswered questions, gave in to temptation. He picked up the phone, his heart pounding as he scrolled through the messages. What he saw made his blood run cold. Message after message from Andre, filled with intimate details and future plans. The truth hit Lucas like a physical blow, leaving him breathless and nauseous. When Mia emerged from the bathroom, she found Lucas sitting on the bed, her phone in his hand, his face a mask of fury and pain. "Lucas, I can explain," Mia began, her voice trembling. "Explain what?" Lucas spat, his voice low and dangerous. "Explain how you've been cheating on me while I was fighting for my life overseas?" Mia's denials crumbled quickly under the weight of evidence. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed to her affair with Andre, a local businessman she had met at a charity event. "I was lonely," she sobbed. "You were gone for so long, and when you came back, you were different." Lucas laughed bitterly. "Different? I lost my leg fighting for our country, and you couldn't even wait for me to come home before jumping into bed with someone else?" Unable to bear the sight of her any longer, Lucas grabbed his cane and stormed out of the house. He found himself at a local bar, drowning his sorrows in cheap whiskey. As the afternoon wore on, he noticed a group of men at a nearby table, their conversation punctuated by familiar military jargon. One of them, a grizzled man with a prosthetic arm, caught Lucas's eye. "You look like you've seen better days, brother," he said, pulling up a chair. Lucas nodded, grateful for the company. "Just found out my wife's been cheating on me while I was deployed," he admitted, the words bitter on his tongue. The man winced. "That's rough." "I'm Tom," he said, extending his good hand. "Let me buy you a drink, and you can tell us all about it." As Lucas poured out his story to the group of veterans, he felt a strange sense of relief. These men understood his pain, both physical and emotional, in a way that civilians never could. By the time last call came around, Lucas had made a decision. He couldn't go back to that house, to Mia and her lies. It was time to start over, to find a new purpose in life. With the support of his new friends, Lucas took his first steps towards a future he never expected, but one that held the promise of healing and redemption. A week after his confrontation with Mia, Lucas found himself in a community center basement, surrounded by a circle of chairs filled with fellow veterans. Tom, the man he'd met at the bar, had convinced him to attend this support group meeting. "All right, folks," Tom began, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "We've got a new face with us today. Lucas, why don't you introduce yourself?" Lucas cleared his throat, suddenly nervous. "I'm Lucas, ex-Army. Just got back from my last tour a couple weeks ago." He tapped his prosthetic leg. "Left a piece of myself over there, I guess." Nods of understanding rippled through the group. As the meeting progressed, Lucas listened to stories of nightmares, failed relationships, and struggles with civilian life. He was struck by how familiar it all felt, how these strangers seemed to understand him better than his own wife had. When it came time for Lucas to speak again, he found himself opening up about Mia's betrayal. The words poured out of him, a torrent of pain and anger he'd been holding back. "I feel like I lost everything," he finished, his voice hoarse. "My leg, my wife, my purpose. I don't know where to go from here." Tom leaned forward, his eyes full of compassion. "You haven't lost everything, Lucas. You've got us now. And trust me, we've all been where you are. The key is to find something new to fight for." After the meeting, Tom pulled Lucas aside. "Listen, I've got an idea. There's this competition coming up, adaptive sports for vets. Why don't you join our team?" Lucas hesitated. "I don't know, man. I'm not exactly in peak condition." Tom laughed. "None of us are, brother. That's the point. It's about pushing ourselves, showing the world we're not done yet. What do you say?" For the first time in weeks, Lucas felt a spark of excitement. "Yeah," he said, a small smile forming on his face. "Yeah, I'm in." Over the next few weeks, Lucas threw himself into training with Tom and the others. The physical exertion was grueling, but it gave him a sense of purpose he'd been missing. More importantly, it gave him a community. During one particularly tough session, Lucas found himself struggling with a new prosthetic designed for running. Frustration built up inside him until he finally snapped, throwing the leg across the room. Tom was there in an instant, his hand on Lucas's shoulder. "Hey, it's okay. We all have moments like this. The important thing is to get back up." Lucas took a deep breath, nodding. As he retrieved the prosthetic, he realized something. For the first time since coming home, he wasn't thinking about Mia or the life he'd lost. He was focused on the future, on the man he could become. As he strapped the leg back on and stood up, Lucas felt a newfound determination. He might have lost a leg and a wife, but he'd gained something too. A chance to redefine himself, to build a life on his own terms. And with his new brothers in arms by his side, he was ready to take on that challenge. As the weeks passed, Lucas and Tom threw themselves into organizing the adaptive sports competition. They reached out to local schools, businesses, and community organizations, turning what started as a small event into something much larger. "We need to make this big," Lucas said one evening as they pored over plans. "Not just for us, but for every vet struggling to find their place." Tom nodded, a proud smile on his face. "You've come a long way, kid. Remember when you could barely look at that prosthetic?" Lucas chuckled, tapping his artificial leg. "Yeah, well, I had a good teacher." Their efforts paid off. As the day of the competition approached, the entire town seemed to buzz with excitement. Local businesses donated equipment and sponsorships. Schools organized cheering sections. Even the mayor promised to attend. The morning of the event, Lucas stood at the edge of the track, his heart pounding. Crowds filled the stands, and fellow veterans from all over the state milled around, preparing for their events. "Nervous?" Tom asked, appearing beside him. Lucas nodded. "A little. It's been a long time since I felt like I was part of something this important." As the competition began, Lucas found himself swept up in the energy and camaraderie. He competed in several events, from wheelchair basketball to a 100-meter sprint. With each race, each game, he felt stronger, more alive. During a break between events, Lucas noticed a familiar figure in the crowd. Mia stood near the bleachers, her eyes fixed on him. For a moment, their gazes met, and Lucas felt a twinge of something. Not love or longing, but a sense of closure. He turned away, focusing instead on his teammates. This was his world now. These were his people. He didn't need Mia's approval or support anymore. As the day wore on, Lucas found himself constantly surrounded by people. Fellow veterans sharing stories, community members expressing their gratitude, even reporters asking for interviews. It was overwhelming, but in the best possible way. The final event was a relay race. Lucas was the anchor for his team, waiting at the far end of the track. As he watched his teammates make their way around, he felt a surge of pride and belonging. When the baton was finally passed to him, Lucas took off like a shot. His prosthetic leg pounded the track, the cheers of the crowd fading into white noise as he focused on the finish line. With a final burst of speed, he crossed it, collapsing into the arms of his cheering teammates. As they celebrated their victory, Lucas caught sight of Tom grinning widely. "You did it, kid," Tom said, clapping him on the back. "You found your strength again." Lucas nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. He had done more than win a race. He had rediscovered his purpose, his place in the world. As he stood there, surrounded by his new family, Lucas realized that his journey of healing had only just begun. But for the first time since coming home, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. While Lucas found new purpose, Mia grappled with the consequences of her actions. One evening, she sat across from Andre in an upscale restaurant, picking at her food and avoiding his gaze. "What's wrong, darling?" Andre asked, reaching for her hand. "You've been distant lately." Mia pulled away, sighing heavily. "I saw Lucas at the competition today. He looked happy, fulfilled." Andre's expression darkened. "I thought we agreed you'd stay away from him." "It's over, Mia. You're with me now." "I know, but—" Mia hesitated, struggling to articulate her feelings. Seeing him like that, it made me wonder if I made a mistake. Andre leaned back, his charming facade slipping for a moment. "A mistake? Need I remind you of everything I've given you? The lifestyle, the connections?" "It's not about that," Mia interrupted. "Lucas needed me, and I abandoned him. What kind of person does that make me?" Andre's eyes narrowed. "The kind of person who knows what she wants and goes after it. Speaking of which, I have an idea that could benefit both of us." He leaned in, lowering his voice. Lucas's story, the wounded veteran, betrayed by his wife, finding redemption, it's marketing gold. "I'm thinking of using it for my next campaign." Mia stared at him, aghast. "You want to exploit Lucas's pain for your business?" Andre shrugged, unperturbed. "It's not exploitation, it's opportunity. Think about it. We could spin this into something positive. From tragedy to triumph, that sort of thing." As Andre continued outlining his plan, Mia felt a growing sense of revulsion. This man, whom she had chosen over her husband, was talking about Lucas's life as if it were nothing more than a commodity to be bought and sold. "No," Mia said firmly, cutting Andre off mid-sentence. "I won't be part of this. It's wrong." Andre's charm vanished entirely, replaced by cold anger. "You're being emotional, Mia. This is business. Besides, you're in no position to take the moral high ground, are you?" His words hit Mia like a slap. She stood abruptly, grabbing her purse. "I think I need some time to think, Andre, about everything." As she walked out of the restaurant, leaving a stunned Andre behind, Mia felt a strange mix of emotions. Guilt, certainly, for her betrayal of Lucas, but also a growing sense of clarity. For the first time, she saw Andre for who he truly was, not the charming, successful businessman she'd fallen for, but a calculating opportunist who cared only for his own gain. Mia drove home in silence, her mind racing. She thought about Lucas, about the strength he'd shown in rebuilding his life without her. She thought about Andre, and how hollow their relationship suddenly seemed in comparison. As she entered her empty apartment, Mia was struck by a painful realization. In her quest for excitement and escape, she had not only hurt Lucas but had also lost herself. The woman who had stood by her husband through his deployment, who had promised to love him in sickness and in health, seemed like a stranger now. Mia sank onto her couch, tears streaming down her face. She had a lot of soul-searching to do. But one thing was clear. She couldn't continue down this path with Andre. It was time to face the consequences of her actions and find a way to make things right, even if that meant losing everything she thought she wanted. The day of the adaptive sports competition arrived, transforming the local park into a vibrant hub of activity. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and the air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. Lucas arrived early with Tom and the rest of their team. As they set up their area, Lucas couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This event, which had started as a small idea, had grown into something truly remarkable. "You ready for this?" Tom asked, clapping Lucas on the shoulder. Lucas nodded, a determined smile on his face. More than ready. As the morning progressed, the park filled with participants, volunteers, and spectators. Lucas found himself constantly in motion, competing in events, cheering on his teammates, and talking with community members who approached him with words of support and admiration. During a brief lull between events, Lucas noticed Mia standing at the edge of the crowd. Their eyes met for a moment, and he was surprised to find that the sight of her no longer filled him with anger or pain. Instead, he felt a sense of calm acceptance. He gave her a small nod before turning his attention back to his team. The competition was fierce but friendly. Veterans of all ages and abilities participated, each pushing their limits and supporting one another. Lucas found himself inspired by their resilience and determination. As the day wore on, word spread that Lucas was one of the main organizers. A local reporter approached him, microphone in hand. "Lucas, can you tell us what inspired you to put this event together?" she asked. Lucas paused, considering his words carefully. "When I came home from my deployment, I felt lost. I thought my life was over. But then I found this community of veterans, and they showed me that there's always a way forward, no matter what challenges you face." The reporter nodded encouragingly. "And what would you say to other veterans who might be struggling?" Lucas looked directly into the camera. "I'd say this: you're not alone. There are people out there who understand what you're going through, who want to help. Don't be afraid to reach out. And most importantly, don't give up on yourself. You're stronger than you know." As the interview ended, Lucas was surprised to find a small crowd had gathered to listen. Among them, he saw Tom beaming with pride. The day culminated in an awards ceremony where Lucas was asked to give a short speech. Standing at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces, veterans, families, community members, Lucas felt a wave of emotion wash over him. "When I came home from war," he began, his voice steady, "I thought I had lost everything. My body was broken, my spirit was crushed, and I felt utterly alone. But standing here today, I realize how wrong I was." He gestured to the crowd. "Look around you. This is what community looks like. This is what support looks like. We may have lost parts of ourselves overseas, but we've gained something too. A family that understands us, that lifts us up when we fall." As Lucas continued his speech, he saw tears in the eyes of many listeners. He spoke of resilience, of finding purpose in helping others, of the strength that comes from facing adversity together. "So let's leave here today not just as competitors," he concluded, "but as a united front. Let's show the world that our struggles don't define us, our response to them does." Thank you all for being part of this journey. The applause was thunderous. As Lucas stepped down from the podium, he was engulfed in hugs and handshakes. In that moment, surrounded by his newfound family, Lucas realized he had found something he thought he'd lost forever: a sense of belonging, of purpose, of hope for the future. In the days following the competition, Lucas rode a wave of positivity. The event's success had given him a renewed sense of purpose. However, he knew there was still unfinished business to address. One evening, Lucas received a text from Mia asking to meet. After some consideration, he agreed, suggesting they meet at their old house, neutral ground that held memories for both of them. As Lucas approached the familiar front door, He felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but also a strange sense of calm. He was no longer the broken man who had returned from war. He had found his strength again. Mia opened the door, her face a mask of nervousness. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. Lucas nodded, stepping inside. The house felt different now, like a relic from another life. As they settled in the living room, an awkward silence fell between them. "I saw you at the competition," Mia finally said. "You were amazing." Lucas met her gaze steadily. "Why did you ask me here, Mia?" Before she could answer, the door opened again. Andre walked in, his confident stride faltering slightly when he saw Lucas. "What's he doing here?" Lucas asked, his voice low and dangerous. Mia looked panicked. I thought we should all talk. Clear the air." Lucas laughed bitterly. "Clear the air? You mean like how you cleared out our marriage vows while I was fighting for my life overseas?" Andre stepped forward, his charm on full display. "Look, Lucas, what happened was unfortunate, but—" "Unfortunate?" Lucas interrupted, his voice rising. "Is that what you call sleeping with a deployed soldier's wife? Unfortunate?" The tension in the room was palpable. Mia looked between the two men, her face a mix of guilt and fear. "I know about your plans, Andre," Lucas continued, his voice eerily calm now. "Using my story for your marketing campaign. Did you think I wouldn't find out?" Andre's facade cracked slightly. "It's just business, Lucas. Your story could inspire." "My story?" Lucas stood, towering over Andre. "My story is not yours to sell. My pain, my struggle, my recovery, none of that belongs to you." Mia stepped between them. "Please, both of you, calm down. This isn't helping anyone." Lucas turned to her, years of hurt evident in his eyes. "And you, Mia, did you ever really love me? Or was I just convenient until something better came along?" Tears welled up in Mia's eyes. "Lucas, I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I was weak and scared and—" "Save it," Lucas cut her off. He took a deep breath, centering himself. "I didn't come here for apologies or excuses. I came here to say this. I'm done with both of you. What you did." He looked at Mia, then at Andre. "It broke me, but I've put myself back together. Without either of you." Andre, sensing the situation slipping away from him, tried one last time. "Lucas, surely we can come to some arrangement. Your story could really—" "My story is my own," Lucas said firmly, "and it's not for sale. If I ever hear about you trying to use it, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. Are we clear?" Andre nodded, all pretense of friendliness gone. Lucas turned to leave, pausing at the door. He looked back at Mia, who was silently crying. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Mia. I really do. But it won't be with me, and it sure as hell won't be with him." With that, Lucas walked out, leaving behind the ghosts of his past. As he stepped into the cool evening air, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The confrontation had been painful, but necessary. Now, he could truly move forward, unburdened by the what-ifs and maybes that had haunted him. Lucas walked away from his old house, not looking back. He had a new life waiting for him, one built on resilience, camaraderie, and the strength he had found within himself. In the days following the confrontation, Mia found herself alone in her apartment, the silence deafening. The encounter with Lucas had shaken her to her core, forcing her to confront the reality of her actions. She sat on her couch, a photo album open on her lap. Pictures of her and Lucas in happier times stared back at her, their wedding day, vacations, quiet moments at home. Each image was a stark reminder of what she had thrown away. Mia's phone buzzed. Another message from Andre, asking to meet. She ignored it, as she had been doing for days. The thought of seeing him now made her stomach churn. Rising from the couch, Mia walked to the window, looking out at the bustling city below. She thought about Lucas, about the strength and purpose she had seen in him at the competition. It was a far cry from the broken man who had returned from war. He had rebuilt himself, found a new path, all without her. The realization hit her like a physical blow. She had abandoned Lucas when he needed her most, chasing after what she thought was excitement and passion with Andre. But now, The superficiality of her relationship with Andre was glaringly apparent. Mia returned to the couch, picking up her phone. Her finger hovered over Lucas's contact information. She wanted to reach out, to apologize again, to try to make things right. But what right did she have to disrupt his life again? She put the phone down, unsent message still on the screen. Lucas had made it clear that he had moved on. Perhaps the kindest thing she could do now was to respect his wishes and stay away. As night fell, Mia made a decision. She couldn't change the past, couldn't undo the hurt she had caused. But she could change her future. She opened her laptop and began researching volunteer opportunities at the local VA hospital. It wasn't much, but it was a start, a way to give back, to try to make amends in some small way. Mia knew the road ahead would be difficult. She had lost Lucas's trust and love, and in the process, she had lost a part of herself. Rebuilding her life, finding her own purpose, it would take time and effort. But as she thought about Lucas and the journey he had undertaken, she felt a glimmer of hope. She couldn't go back and be the wife Lucas had needed. But maybe, just maybe, she could become the kind of person who would never make such a devastating mistake again. It was a small comfort, but it was something to hold on to as she faced an uncertain future. As Mia closed the photo album and put it away, she made a silent promise to Lucas, to herself, to the person she wanted to become. She would learn from this, grow from it, and someday, she hoped, she would find a way to make peace with her past and move forward with integrity and compassion. The path ahead was unclear, but for the first time in a long while, Mia felt ready to face it head-on. She had a lot of work to do, starting with herself. As weeks turned into months, Lucas found himself fully immersed in his new life. The success of the adaptive sports competition had opened doors he never imagined possible. With Tom's encouragement, Lucas decided to expand their efforts, creating a comprehensive program to help veterans reintegrate into civilian life. One sunny morning, Lucas stood before a group of newly returned veterans at the local VA center. Some were in wheelchairs, others bore visible scars, but all shared the same lost look he once had. "I know that look," Lucas began, his voice steady and compassionate. "You're wondering if your life is over, if you'll ever feel normal again. I'm here to tell you that it's not, and you will. But it won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight." As he spoke, Lucas saw a glimmer of hope in some of their eyes. He shared his own story, the pain, the betrayal, the struggle to find purpose. But he also spoke of redemption, of the strength found in community, and the power of helping others. "This program isn't just about physical rehabilitation," he explained. "It's about rediscovering who you are, about finding your place in a world that might seem foreign now. We're here to help you every step of the way." After the meeting, a young soldier approached Lucas, hesitation in every step. "Sir," he said quietly, "do you really think someone like me could do what you've done?" Lucas placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. "I don't think it. I know it. You're stronger than you realize. All you need is a chance and some support. That's what we're here for." As the days passed, Lucas threw himself into the work. He coordinated with local businesses to create job opportunities, organize support groups, and continued to expand the adaptive sports program. The community rallied around their efforts, with donations and volunteers pouring in. One evening, as Lucas was leaving the center, he spotted a familiar figure waiting by his car. It was Mia. "Lucas," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I wanted to apologize again. For everything." Lucas studied her for a moment. The anger he once felt had faded, replaced by a calm acceptance. "Thank you, Mia. I appreciate that." Mia nodded, then hesitated. "I've been volunteering at the VA hospital. I know it doesn't make up for what I did, but I'm trying to be better, to do better." "That's good," Lucas replied, his tone neutral. "I'm glad you're finding your way." An awkward silence fell between them. Finally, Mia spoke again. "I saw the article about your program in the newspaper. You're doing amazing things, Lucas. I'm really proud of you." Lucas offered a small smile. "Thank you. But this isn't about me. It's about all of us, veterans, families, the whole community. We're in this together." As Mia turned to leave, she paused. "Do you think, could we ever be friends again?" Lucas took a deep breath. "I don't know, Mia. What happened between us, it changed everything. I'm not the same person I was, and I'm guessing you're not either. Right now, I need to focus on this program, on the people who need help. Maybe someday we can be civil, but for now, I think it's best if we keep our distance." Mia nodded, tears in her eyes. "I understand. Take care of yourself, Lucas." As she walked away, Lucas felt a sense of closure. He had faced his past and come out stronger. Now, it was time to focus on the future. Not just his own, but the futures of all the veterans who were counting on him. Lucas got into his car, his mind already on tomorrow's tasks. He had a new mission now, a new purpose. And with each veteran he helped, each life he touched, he felt more alive, more whole. This was his new journey, and he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. Weeks after his encounter with Mia, Lucas was immersed in his work with the Veteran Support Program. The initiative had gained significant traction, attracting attention from local media and community leaders. However, not all attention was positive. One morning, Lucas arrived at the center to find Tom waiting for him, a grim expression on his face. "We've got a problem," Tom said, handing Lucas a tablet. On the screen was a slick marketing campaign for Andre's company. The centerpiece was a dramatized version of Lucas's story, a wounded veteran overcoming adversity. The tagline read, "Rise Above." With Andre Corporation, Lucas felt a surge of anger. He actually did it. "After I warned him." Tom nodded. "It gets worse. He's presenting this at a big charity gala tonight. Lots of influential people will be there." Lucas set his jaw. "Then we'll be there too." Throughout the day, Lucas and Tom rallied their network of veterans and supporters. They reached out to local media contacts, prepared statements, and organized a peaceful demonstration outside the gala venue. As evening fell, Lucas stood before a group of veterans, many in uniform or wearing identifying caps. "Remember," he said, "we're not here to cause trouble. We're here to stand up for our stories, our struggles. They belong to us, not to some corporation's bottom line." The gala was in full swing when Andre took the stage, his charismatic smile plastered across giant screens. But as he began his presentation, he faltered. Through the windows, he could see the growing crowd of veterans outside, their silent presence more powerful than any shout could be. Murmurs spread through the gala attendees. Reporters who had been tipped off began asking pointed questions about the ethics of using veterans' stories without consent. Lucas, who had managed to gain entry to the event, stood up. "Mr. Andre," he called out, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room, "would you care to explain how you obtained permission to use my story in your campaign?" Andre's facade cracked. He stammered, trying to regain control, but the damage was done. Cameras turned to Lucas as he calmly explained the reality behind Andre's polished narrative. In the days that followed, Andre's campaign imploded. His company faced backlash and potential lawsuits. The scandal overshadowed any positive message he had hoped to convey. Meanwhile, Lucas's Veteran Support Program received an outpouring of support. Donations flooded in, and offers of partnership came from reputable organizations genuinely committed to helping veterans. A month later, Lucas found himself on a different stage, accepting a community service award for his work with veterans. As he looked out at the audience, he saw faces filled with genuine admiration and respect. "This award doesn't belong to just me," Lucas said. "It belongs to every veteran who's struggled, who's felt lost and alone. It belongs to those who've reached out to help others even when they were hurting themselves." He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "When I came home from war, I thought my life was over. I'd lost a part of myself, both physically and emotionally. But I've learned that it's not about what we lose, it's about what we do with what remains." As applause filled the room, Lucas caught sight of Mia in the back. Their eyes met briefly, and he gave her a small nod. There was no anger now, no bitterness, just acceptance and the recognition of two people on separate paths. Later that night, as Lucas sat in his office at the Veteran Center, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The pain of betrayal, the struggle to find purpose, the joy of helping others, it had all led to this moment. He picked up a framed photo on his desk. It showed him surrounded by smiling veterans from his program. These were his people now, his new family. They had saved him as much as he had helped them. As he prepared to leave for the day, Lucas felt a profound sense of peace. He had faced his demons, both internal and external, and come out stronger. The road ahead was bright with possibility, and he was ready to face whatever challenges it might bring. With a smile, Lucas turned off the lights and stepped out into the cool evening air. Tomorrow was a new day, full of opportunities to make a difference, and he couldn't wait to get started.